Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Love of Business podcast at prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media. I will be your host today. My name is Maria Miko Faith, and I will be your host today. And I'm happy to introduce to you Kim Bosley with Eve's Tiny Tales. Thank you so much, Kim.
Hi, Miko. Thank you for having me, excuse me, on the show. This is, I heard being on a podcast was really cool. So this is, I agree, this is pretty cool. I just wish my body would be cool right now. I'm a little hot.
Well, that's part of our brand, I think, is just, being real and showing up where we are and sharing our love of business.
Yeah.
And I was looking at your bio, and you have a really interesting background. Do you want to tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. Well, from the bio, I read a lot as a kid. I think I started writing when I was, like this, maybe 10 years old. I would write diaries of, and kept journals of all the daily activities that went on in our neighborhood. It was really fun growing up in our neighborhood. It was just, I remember so many kids out, and I couldn't wait to see what the day would bring. We were playing like Mother Goose or tic-tac-toe or Simon Says kickball. And, of course, I was writing journals on those, the little boy you had a crush on, down the street. And so I just remember doing a lot of writing, personal journals. And I read a lot as a kid. I think that also contributed to my writing. I just remember reading a lot of books. I was a fan of like The Little House on the Prairie and the Nancy Drew Hardy Boys series. And also a big fan of what's the show? Murder, She Wrote. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that was a very popular show that came out in the 80s. And I was just a big fan of that show. I mean, the whole concept of the show was just like, it was great.
Oh,
it was,
you know what? I
writer.
did see a few. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was just a great show. And I actually remember telling myself, I want to be like her. I want to be just like Angela Lansbury. And strangely, when I think about it, we kind of have similar, there's some similarities. She was like, her character, she was like this retired English teacher, and she wanted to, I think she was like, started writing in her 50s. She was this widow, and we kind of have similar personalities. I used to teach, and, I wanted to start writing. I'm not quite 50, but it's just around the corner. So, so I think that as a kid, when we wish for things, that there's some, maybe it comes true. I don't know. But
I love it.
My background. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so sorry, I'm holding my phone because I'm having internet issues. So, but I went to school at, what was it? I went to college, and I ended up changing my major 2 times because, I didn't want to go right into college, not just yet. I wanted to travel and see the world. That's what I wanted to do. But, 18 years old out of college, it was like, I didn't have any money to travel. So I decided, well, I'll go to school, and I worked during the day. And I went to UNLV. I changed my major 2 times. I didn't start off with writing. I started off as a social work major, and I took a class. I remember taking this class on like kids and suicide, and that really, I just remember sitting in class crying. And I'm thinking, if I'm crying in class, imagine what it'd be like, actually on the job. I'm going to cry to everywhere I go, And so I thought it was a little too heavy for my heart, and it was just too much for me. And I thought about teaching, and I went into education. And when I started taking education classes, it was like, I wasn't very, I didn't have that excitement. It was just, I was going to class, and it was just like, But I remember taking a special education course, and it was like, I did not like special education. I didn't like I guess I didn't like it because I failed the class. And I failed terribly. And of course, I repeated the class to boost up my GPA, and I still did terrible. I mean, I didn't fail it, but it wasn't the best grade either. So I just thought, you know what, education's not for me. I'm going to take a long break. And I took a long break from school. I took maybe 6 years off, and I just started working. And I remember working at a newspaper and employment company where I was writing job posts. I worked at a communications company. And, but, you know, when I came back to UNLV, I decided to go back and get my degree. You know, I said, I'm almost done, so I might as well finish it up. And I remember taking like classes in fine arts, like piano and acting. And I really loved those. I mean, when I started taking those classes, I just felt alive. But
Nice.
I ended up getting a degree in sociology. And sociology, I was thinking, well, what am I going to get as a job? Where am I going to work with a sociology degree? So I ended up going, thought about law school, and law school was just the idea of writing or public speaking for law school didn't sit well for me. I wasn't good at public speaking, and I just didn't feel comfortable with it. So I decided to look for a job in, you know, government, or, you know, a state job. I wanted security, and I did get a government job. I was there for about 11 and a half years, and I felt that I really grew a lot professionally when I worked for the government jobs. And you know, it's cool experiences too. I got a chance to be a part of a historic election when Obama was elected as president. I even got a call from the White House during the Bush administration, and that was like one of the coolest moments, you know, of my work experience, probably. And and but while I was there, I always felt like I kept looking for something else. I kept saying, no, this is not it. I knew I didn't want to retire working in the government job. It was something that was pulling at me. And while I was there, I worked on a master's degree, and part of our course, we had to read this book called The Personality, Solving the People Puzzle and Personality Makeover. And I was so fascinated with this book, the whole thing about human behavior. And so I reached out, I called the author, and I'm like, look, you got to train me. You got to tell me. I want to know everything you know about human behavior. So this guy, Dr. Mel's Carbonell, he took me under his wings and trained me. He also had a company where you could learn how to become a behavior consultant. So I went through the training, became certified as human behavior consultant. And I apply a lot of that to my writing today. And that's kind of like my background.
Yeah, and it sets you up.
I feel like I'm talking about, you know, as a writer. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're explaining really the background for your love of business, because your business is writing now, right?
My business is writing right now. Yes, I took that leap of faith. I left my teaching job this year because, you know, writing was it. I saw all of the opportunities that writing was presenting me. And it was the most different experience that I've ever had. You know, with other jobs, I always felt this force. But with writing, it was something that I loved. It was something that I'm good at. And so I just said, you know what, I've got all of these stories that I've written, and I had a few close people, friends I had a few close friends and family read it, and they were like, you know, I didn't know you were this good. And so they were saying, you got to get your stories out. You got to share this with the world. And I love my stories. I think people will find them delightful, and hopefully they will. And that's the kind of the story of how I started writing. I just took that leap of faith and everything, and I just feel a peace about it. And I think that's how I knew when I made the right decision. There's peace and happiness, you know, when I write. And my stories they're short. So I hopefully people will like the idea of short stories for all those busy entrepreneurs out there, and those busy CEOs who maybe like enjoy reading, but they don't have time to read a novel. So I offer something short for them. And then for those personalities who like, maybe want their hero to win, or they're very optimistic, I deliver stories that will make them believe that the impossible is possible. And then for those, those sweet type, the type that's hard to say, they find it hard to say no. That's me. So I write something sweet for them, and those peaceful souls. And then for your people who like to wear detectives, the little detective hats, I've dropped subtle clues in my stories for those types. And so I try to deliver stories again that will, entertain all different personality types. But I think the one thing about my stories that it's unique is that I tend to write stories that are short or have a twist, because life has a way of kind of throwing us in different directions. So I write stories with twist endings. And my stories have been compared to O. Henry, which was really a compliment, because when I started writing, I wasn't thinking about O. Henry at all. And so,
who's O. Henry for our
looked up O. Henry's story. Oh, yeah. O. Henry, he is like a famous writer. I mean, back in the, I think it was born in the late 1800s, and he wrote hundreds of short stories, and his stories centered on just ordinary people, but he had a fun, he put a fun twist at the end. And he really wrote a lot about, I think it was, if I remember correctly, he had this thing about the city, the big cities. So a lot of his stories were focused on those ordinary people living in the big city. But again, he just put a spin on it, and he, used a lot of twist endings. So check out his stories if you like. If you want to get an idea of what my stories are like, then check out his stories.
I want to check. Oh yeah. I guess I could, but I'd love to check out your stories. So Eve's Tiny Tales, is that the name of your short stories?
Yes, Eve's Tiny Tales is the name of my website, which will be launched actually today. So you guys keep an eye out on that. And yeah, now you won't find all of my stories on there just yet. So right now I'm finding magazine publications, and I will keep everyone posted on where you can find my stories. I will have free stories, on there, so you can read at least, I like to give the audience a sample of what I write. And the book is coming soon. So Eve's Tiny Tales, with the subtitle of Ordinary Stories, or Ordinary Short Stories with Extraordinary Twist, will be the name of the book. And I hope everyone will enjoy it. I think you will. And I love to hear comments and feedbacks. I love feedbacks from people. And even though it may not seem like it, because, I'm a writer, I'm very introverted. So I tend to keep to myself. But I guarantee you, if you reach out to me, I will respond, because, I love interacting with people, even though it doesn't seem like it, but, I really do. And I value comments and feedback. So, but I'm emotional, so make sure it's a nice, nice feedback.
Love the honesty. Love the honesty.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very sensitive, but I take criticism well. My skin has thickened up over the years, but the main thing is I just want people to really, enjoy it and say, I really liked it, or I guessed what's going to happen at the end, or that would be really interesting too, to know if the stories actually happened to them. One of my stories is called The Lucky Omelet, and I actually wrote that story on New Year's Day, and I was making an omelet. And the idea came to me, and I wrote the outline, but I started writing later that evening or that afternoon. And the story, what I like about the story is because, we all go into a restaurant, right? Or if you work in a restaurant, you serve customers who are, you don't know what to expect, right? So this story is about my character, Fred. He goes into a restaurant and he just wants an omelet. So, you have to wait and read the story to find out what happens at the end. But there's an interesting twist, and I would love for someone to say, you know what, that actually happened to me. So that would be really interesting.
Yeah, how cool. Well, what an adventure to pursue your dream of writing and to be able to entertain people and connect with people through short stories. That's really cool.
Yes, it is. I love it. It's, I just look at life and look at the events and experiences that we have. And, I take fictional characters and I just write it using real human experiences. So some of the stories are, they deal with real life things. But my stories do not contain any violence. I don't write stories that deal with violence or, hardcore or anything like that. So for all you hardcore lovers out there, sorry. That's not my style, but I still think that you would enjoy it. And I look forward to writing more stories. That's my goal. I want to just continue to write and write and write and write until I can't write anymore. And
love it.
And so, as a writer, yeah, I make sure I have a pen with me, because if idea come, I want to jot it down. And you know how people are with their cell phones, right? When they don't have their phones, they're like freaking out. Well, I'm like that when I don't have a writing utensil. If I don't have a writing pen or pencil with me, I freak out. So I
so do you usually write?
That probably goes to show, yeah.
You usually write with a pen, or do you write on your phone or your computer?
I usually write on my computer. I tend to get I keep a pen and pad with me and a notebook next to me at bed when I sleep at night, because in the morning time when I wake up, there's like a idea that comes to me, and I usually come in the morning for some reason. I don't know why, but the ideas come in the morning, and I just write down the idea, and I think of a title, and then I'll later on that night or evening, I'll write the outline and I'll start writing. And I feel like I write the best at night. I come alive at night. I'm like a gremlin or something. I don't know. So that's that's the best time that I seem to write. And but yeah, I usually type the stories on my computer, but I'm always writing the ideas on notebook and pad. I mean, I have like so many notebooks, I can't even count them, because I just jot down ideas. And I'm always writing stuff anyway, write down on my to-do list, everything I write down. I rarely use the computer to write down anything. I'm always writing it down, the old-fashioned way, to pen and paper, or pencil and paper. So
we use a different part of our brain when we write with our hands. When we write longhand.
Yeah. Yes, we do. We tend to, yeah, you're right. We do. Sorry.
So even when you're writing your stories, it's all right. We'll save your arm for another time, and thank you so much for sharing your story and your story about your stories, and for being on the Love of Business with us.
Oh, you're welcome, Miko. And I'm so sorry for the internet issues that we had earlier, and that's why I'm using my phone. So I'm standing here with holding my phone. I need to get a selfie stick. Because you never know when you might be interviewed and you have to use a selfie stick. So.
Right. You got to be prepared for those interviews, because they're coming for sure. You opened the gate now. Well, thank you so much again, Kim.
So for all you out there, Thank you so much, Miko, for having me.
Did you have any last words you wanted to share with our audience?
No, well, I just want to say for the family and friends who chimed in and took time out to listen. Thank you guys for your support and for the encouragement. So I really appreciate it. And for anyone who interested in being a writer, I just say go for it. Just do it. If it's in your gut and your blood to want to do it, just do it. Don't even, doesn't matter how ridiculous you think it sounds, just write it down, because you'll be surprised at what you'll discover.
Great
and thank
advice.
you so much for having this podcast. This is great. Yeah.
Oh, you're so welcome. And thank you all for watching The Love of Business. Do stay tuned for more great shows on PR Connections Radio, the voice of new media.
Okay.